Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Brainbean here again. Back with another video after a little break. Took a little bit of time off for the holidays to spend time with family and all that. But now I am back and ready to do another review for you. Now this one we're going to start off with just a nice budget-friendly mechanical keyboard. I haven't done one of these in a while. And First Player reached out to me and asked me if I would take a look at their new MK6 Bullet Hunter keyboard. And if you guys remember, I did a review from First Player about 2 years ago, and their budget keyboard, the Fire Rose, really surprised me and just offered a really good value for the money. So I've got some good expectations going into this one. I'm excited to see what the Bullet Hunter is going to bring. And kind of in the holiday spirit, I do have an extra one of these to give away, so I will be doing a giveaway for this one as well. I'll have all the details on that at the end of the video, but for now, let's take a look at the Bullet Hunter. Now I wanted to do this video a little bit different than I normally do. I haven't even looked at this keyboard yet, and I wanted to make this video more kind of off the cuff and going over what I would look for in a keyboard as I'm looking at it. So let's get this thing open. In the box we have some extra switches because this is a modular keyboard. Also a switch puller and a keycap puller. And we'll get more into that here in a little bit. So first impressions out of the box, this is a really solid feeling keyboard. It's made out of a CNC aluminum, and just trying to flex this board and bend it really doesn't have much flex at all. There's a little bit in the middle, but very stout feeling sturdy keyboard. The design is very minimalistic as well. It's very thin. You guys can see there's not a lot of extra backplate running around the rest of the keyboard. There is a little bit at the top, about a ½ inch or so, with the First Player logo, as well as some room for the dedicated media keys that we're going to talk about a little bit later. But the actual board itself is very minimalistic, very basic. I actually like it. It's a very clean design. There is this kind of like silver accent around the side of the back plate that I'm not a huge fan of. I kind of would rather it just be all black, but that's just an aesthetic choice that, I mean, you guys may prefer that, and that's, you know, all your preference. The back plate itself though is like a nice matte finish, fingerprint resistant, so you can touch on it and it's not going to leave fingerprints and look ugly over time. It'll also help with the dust as well. I think when it's not as shiny, it doesn't pick up fingerprints and also doesn't really accent the dust as much. Now, it is a 104 key keyboard, so it is full size. You do get the 10 key and all that as well. And I'm going to go ahead and get the cable undone here. We're going to plug it in and take a look at the lighting. Now the cable is a nice braided cable. It's about a 6-foot long cable, so kind of the standard size to be able to reach just about anywhere you need to. I'm going to go ahead and plug this in and we'll take a look at the lights. Okay, so getting it plugged in and taking a look at the board, there's actually an illuminated First Player logo at the top of the board. Now it only glows in white, but on a keyboard that is a more budget-friendly board, one, to have it be mechanical with per key RGB is pretty cool, and then to have some little extras like the illuminated logo at the top as well as the macro keys is really cool. Now the actual LEDs themselves, these are Altimu switches, so they're going to have the clear switch bodies like Cherries or Kales will, but like I've said in other reviews that I've done with the Altimu switches, I find that their RGB switches are just not nearly as bright as Kale or Cherries are. I'd say they're almost about 50%. Now if you're using the keyboard in the dark, you're not really going to run into too much issue here because you're still going to get that nice kind of underglow effect. You'll still be able to identify all of the keys really well. And this keyboard does have really nicely illuminated keys with all the fonts are easy to see. It's nothing that sometimes they get really messy and you can't actually illuminate some of the, like the page up, page down, stuff like that. All the letters aren't fully illuminated. Now these are double shot ABS keycaps, so you do get some really good light permeation there. Now not all of the secondary functions are illuminated up top, where you have some of the extra media controls and stuff like that. You don't have illumination, and just in looking at it too, it's kind of weird that they have secondary functions on the keycaps for media keys when they have dedicated media keys, and I think that just boils down to using the same keycap set across multiple keyboards and just not really making one specifically for this keyboard because it has that. The lights are controlled by their First Player MK6 driver software, and it's a fairly basic software, but the fact that you're getting a software to control the lights at all on a $55 mechanical keyboard is pretty insane.
And you do get the ability to customize up to 3 profiles. And just looking at the amount of preset lighting effects, there's quite a few, and a lot of them are pretty good as well. I like the mosaic pattern, looks pretty neat. They've got kind of your standard ripple and reactive, wave, rotating, RGB kind of wave effect. So a lot of really nice ones there, as well as the ability to create your own lighting custom profiles as well if you want to just have kind of your own custom theme. And you can go through and create macros as well.
And to elaborate a little bit more on the font, there are a couple of keys that are a little bit over stylized. I don't think this is on purpose, because for the most part the font is actually pretty simple and minimalistic and looks pretty nice. But something like the D or the O or the Q, anything that has sort of like a connected all the way around character in a single line, there's going to be a break in that somewhere. And so it does look a little bit weird. I think that's just probably how they did the molding process, or to get around the stems of the switch. But other than that, the font is not too bad actually. Now, like I mentioned, this board does use the very budget-friendly Altimu switches, which are pretty much going to mirror the same specs as Cherry switches. They just have a little bit more key wobble, a little bit less quality feel to them, but overall as a budget experience, Altimu is one of my favorite budget-friendly switches. And one thing that's worth mentioning is that this is the newer version of the Altimu switch, which uses the little stem around them, kind of similar to what Razer's doing now. And that does help eliminate key wobble, as well as reduce the amount of dust and things that can get into the switches. Now, these Altimu Blues have a actuation force of 50 grams. They have an actuation distance of 2 millimeters, as well as a 50 million keystroke guarantee on the durability of the switch. Now, I'm going to do a sound test of these Altimu Blues because I have these in front of me now, but I'm also going to leave a link down in the description below to my giant key switch sound test compilation that does have all the other Altimu switches in it. So if you want to check those out, I'll have those down located in the description for you as well. But for now, let's go ahead and get into the sound test. Now, like I kind of mentioned at the beginning of the video, this board is a modular keyboard, and they do give you a handful of replacement blue switches. But let's say you enjoyed the blue switches for a while, but you want to switch to something else. And especially with the Altimu switches, you can buy a set of them for fairly cheap. Or maybe you want to have, just linear switches on your W, A, S, and D, so that while you're streaming or playing games, you get that linear feel and it's not clicking all the time and annoying your audience. That's something that you can do, and all you have to do is just use the included keycap puller and key switch puller, pop off the keycaps, grab the key switch, pop it out of the board, and then grab the replacement switch or the new type of switch that you want to use, pop it into the board, and you're good to go. And it will work with any type of RGB switch, so you just pop it in there, and it does give you the freedom that if you don't want to go out and buy a whole nother board, it is cool to have the option. And another thing I really like about it, as opposed to boards that do have the keys and the switches soldered into them, is that if you do have a key go out on you, you don't have to RMA it and send it all the way back to the manufacturer. You can easily just swap out the switch and be on your way and not have to worry about it. So that is a pretty cool feature for a board that doesn't really cost a lot of money. One thing I like about this board is that the LED indicators are very simple. It's just a very small white LED, very simple character up at the top. It's located just right next to this volume scroll wheel. And I think it's just very clean. Sometimes these gaming keyboards especially, they just have really over stylized on the LED indicators. Sometimes they're weird colors, sometimes they're giant characters. It doesn't need to be that in your face. And overall, as a whole, this whole keyboard is just a very minimalistic design, very basic. And I like that because you can put it on just about any type of setup and it's just not gonna look, too over in your face or anything like that. It's just nice, plain and clean. Now, I purposely saved the extras on this keyboard for the end because I really wanted to take a look at these dedicated media keys, because you really don't see them on budget-friendly mechanical keyboards, and really you don't see them on sub $100 gaming keyboards, sometimes 150 bucks, and it's usually a feature that's reserved for flagship keyboards or something that's considered a little bit more premium. Now, one thing I really like about them is that not only do they have this row of dedicated media keys, but they're illuminated as well. Now, they're only a soft white backlighting, so you're not going to be able to change them. They're not RGB or anything like that, but it's still nice to have, especially with a keyboard that does have RGB if you're going to use it in low light settings. Just being able to identify those keys without having to turn the lights on is a huge plus. I will note that the mute button key does not have very good backlighting to it. I think it's just they didn't really leave enough translucency in the actual character. But other than that, the rest of them are well illuminated. You've got the forward skip, you've got play pause, you've got the backward skip, and then you've got the mute button. Now, they also have this volume scroll wheel as well that is a metal volume scroll wheel, which is nice. It's got a nice texture to it, and it does give you a little bit of tactile feedback as well. It's not clickable, but they do have the dedicated mute button there for you as well. Taking a look at the underside of the keyboard, it does have 4 large rubberized pads and 2 rubberized extendable legs that do help the keyboard stay in place during use. Pretty standard fare there. But overall, guys, taking a look at this keyboard, if I had to give some negatives, I would say if I had to change a couple of things, I would change the font. I don't really like the font on the keycaps. Mainly just those issues that I talked about where some of the characters have a break in them. Other than that, the font's not too bad. I also think it's a little bit sloppy that some of the function characters up here on the keys, like having the media key functions on the keycaps when you have a set of dedicated media keys, is just kind of sloppy. But I get that that's probably just to save money. Other than that though, huge pluses that they have the dedicated media keys. I love the simple design of the keyboard, the fact that they do give you the illuminated logo, the braided cable. There's a lot of quality features to be had in this board. You've got the nice aluminum backplate, you do have the full RGB, and I just think for 55 bucks, you'd be hard pressed to find something that's going to give you all of these features. You could look at something like the Red Dragon Kumara, which is considered a really good budget-friendly mechanical keyboard that does give you some RGB. But this keyboard for 55 bucks also gives you the dedicated media keys with the volume scroll wheel. The really only things that I could even ask for more would be to have an included wrist rest and maybe some macro keys if that's something that you're into. But for 55 bucks, I feel like this is probably the best budget keyboard, mechanical keyboard that I've seen yet. I mean, there's really not much else that you could ask for such a cheap price. Well, that's it for the review, guys. Like I mentioned, I am going to be giving one of these keyboards away. All you have to do to be eligible for the giveaway is 1, make sure you're subscribed to this channel, and 2, make sure you like the video, and 3, leave a comment down below. Just let me know what you think about the MK6 Bullet Hunter, and let me know that you want to be in the giveaway. Other than that, guys, of course, give this video a like if you enjoyed it to show your support. And if you're new here, I'd love to see you subscribe, as I've got a lot more videos coming for you in the near future. And speaking of the near future, I am going to be attending CES this year for the first time. So if you want to see some videos from that, you want to make sure that you're subscribed, because I will be putting out a couple of videos while I'm there. Don't really have a full shooting plan just yet, but there will definitely be some content coming from CES. Of course, if you want to stay up to date with what's going on with the channel, especially the giveaways, I announce those over on my Twitter at Brainbean Gaming. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.